Perfect. Lovely. So I am Sam Woodhouse. I am just moonlighting as Liz Panimo on Zoom today, just to confuse everyone. However, I am Sam Woodhouse. I have been with Crone Corkill for 10 years last week, and I am the channel lead for EA and PA recruitment here at Crone. So hoping to be able to add some helpful insights from the recruitment perspective for you today.
Jess.
Amazing. Hi everybody, I'm Jess. Hopefully some of you will have recognised my face before, but if you haven't, I'm the founder of a business called The Assistant Room. I spent 10 years up until around about 4 years ago as an executive assistant to the good, the bad and the ugly when it comes to execs, always CEO level, founders, entrepreneurs, C-suite. So I had a wonderful career, but I always felt as though our industry was really lacking a very true representation of who we are as an industry. So I started a business called The Assistant Room 5 years ago, and we have grown into one of the biggest networks for personal and executive assistants in the world. We have 20,000 people who engage with us on a monthly basis, and the predominant way that we work with business support professionals now is by or through our membership, which is nearly 1 year old, and we provide really amazing interactive modern training resources, opportunities to connect, grow and build within your career, and also meet other amazing people around the world. So currently everything is online because of COVID, as everything else is. Hopefully we will get back to doing in-person events in London soon, but we are always going to remain a digital platform as well. So check us out if you want to. We're just www.theassistantroom.com.
Thanks, Jess. Thank you very much. And Ben.
Thanks very much, Vic. Hi, everybody. Great to be here with you all. So my name is Ben. I'm the Executive Assistant for the Chairman, Managing Director and Commercial Director at Bloom Procurement Services. So I've been with Bloom for just under 2 years now, having previously worked as the Office Manager and PA to the Chief HR Officer at Global Ec in London. I've probably been an assistant in some way, shape or form since around 2014, but I'm a massive advocate of our industry, truly passionate about it and the people that make it what it is.
Lovely, thank you, Ben. And last but by no means least, our Simone.
Thank you very much, Vic. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I'll do a big welcome because you are joining us from all over the world. As Vic said, my name is Simone White. I've been an assistant for as long as I could possibly remember. 20 plus years is what I will say. I've currently been with my current firm for 15 years. I also founded and I chair globally our internal assistant network, and that supports over 500 assistants globally. Just like everybody else has said on this call, our other panelists, I'm exceptionally passionate about our profession, and I talk about it incessantly, some people may say, but I just feel that once you really understand what this profession is and what your role is within it, the only way is up. And I really love what I do. So I'm so excited to be joining this panel and speaking with you all today.
Thanks, Simone. Thank you very much. So, shall we get started? So the first topic, if you like, or question that we're going to put forward today, and this would be to Ben, actually, if you don't mind, Ben, can you start us off? And, you know, the question itself is, in a world where companies are making cuts, how does an assistant extend their indispensability and remain relevant in today's world? Ben, what's your thoughts?
So I absolutely believe this is a massively relevant question for all of us right now. I think with everything that's going on around the world with COVID and how much that has really accelerated this change within our industry and how we are absolutely accountable to ourselves to move with this changing tide. I think there's no doubt that this has magnified a shift that was already in motion from the more kind of traditional and transactional PA support. And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean that this is going to disappear. I believe there will always be individuals and organisations that will require a specific type of support. But I think we really need to, I think employers will really start to look at the value that we deliver and they'll really start to expect to see more, even though we know we always deliver more. I think, and this will naturally vary from individual to individual, because you have the ability in some organizations to really explore all of these different options and explore different avenues that can actually broaden your horizons and expand your knowledge, and just really develop you and keep you relevant. Whereas I suppose some people might find that more challenging because they may not have the confidence to seek out change, they may not have the support of their bosses, or just simply the capacity. So this process is one I've actually been through myself, not just because things were slightly quieter than normal because of COVID, but predominantly because I saw this shift and I wanted to really get ahead of the curve and change what I was doing and become that real strategic assistant that I know all of us can be. So for me, it started with sitting down with my boss, having a really open and honest conversation about my goals, where I wanted to be. And I've really had the opportunity over the last 12 months to transform my role from what was actually obviously a hugely enjoyable role, but very transactional, very traditional, into more of a cross-functional strategic partner to my MD and to my chairman, working closely with the management board to enact and drive real change throughout the business. And so for me, that was achieved by kind of 4 key elements. So the first of that is you fundamentally need to be a self-starter and drive this change for yourself. I mean, start spending whatever time you can with other teams, other departments, getting to know different areas of your business, find where you can add the real value and where you can get involved. And this is really about expanding your sphere of influence, finding the skills gaps not currently filled by others, and showing everyone what you can do, because we can become so siloed, I think, and sometimes we're unable to see what's going on the ground. And that really is where the magic will happen with this process. I think it's key to highlight here that you need to be able to embrace change for your own benefit, because if you resist this shift and you don't acknowledge the need, you may very well become a casualty of it. And we obviously do not want to lose anyone from our team, from this team. Secondly, absolutely own it. I actively encourage everyone to push to get involved in projects, own a function or a business area, something that is really relevant right now. So that might be a digital transformation project, overseeing your company's social value proposition, colleague diversity and well-being. Taking on that responsibility will elevate your position, increase your visibility, and just get you noticed, which is exactly what you want, because it will start to draw you into previously out of reach or untapped conversations. This then, I feel, leads you to become truly cross-functional and freeing you to utilize your skill set, your knowledge, your expertise, drive positive change throughout the business and reinvigorate key business elements, and be someone that just leads from a unique position of strength and perspective. Thirdly, in terms of these, I think start to work on your realignment with your executive and become the key strategic driver and implementer. I think this is somewhere, or sometimes, where the line starts to blur with a chief of staff role. That's absolutely where we need to start to shift our direction. I think you need to be keeping both ears to the ground, keeping one step ahead of what's going on around your organization, within your industry, and in all honesty, just current affairs in general, because the goal of this is to begin to make what you think and what you say relevant and of value. And this is how you build yourself up to become that sounding board for your boss and really help them to make the big decisions, design the way forward for your organization, and you'll naturally start to pick up some of your boss's tasks and workload. I think if you can take this one step further and begin to speak up at committee meetings or board meetings, I mean, it is scary as hell for the first time, but believe me, it will highlight to everyone in that room that you really know your stuff and that you have something to say that they should listen to. It's all about putting your head above the parapet, get noticed, so that you can ultimately transform your current indispensability. And I think that's the key here. It's your current indispensability into unquestionable value and relevance. That brings me on to my final point, and I think this is so important, and one, again, we are all absolutely accountable for ourselves, is build your brand. Now, actually, this was a new one for myself, which I suppose had happened naturally as my confidence had grown over the years, but it goes hand in hand with everything I've just talked about. Building your brand can range from things as simple as asking one question or saying one thing at every meeting you attend, saying yes to more opportunities and owning projects and business functions, networking more beyond your existing team and connections, but also leading those social value initiatives, those larger projects within communities, as I mentioned earlier, running and promoting thought leadership programs internally and externally, seeking out events like this to get involved in. and just generally being more active on LinkedIn, industry forums, because if you can actually get creative and craft your own thoughts and ignite meaningful discussion, it's a great way of marketing yourself as much as possible, sharing your voice and become that advocate for change. And I think it's a very blunt way of putting it, but literally get your face out there as much as possible, because people, or I believe that people need to know who you are.
And that was a great, really comprehensive actually, and I really like the way that you broke it down for everyone. And I can't say that there was anything there that I'm sure we all agree that, you know, accountability is key, right? I think when looking at, you know, taking control for sure. And I thought all your points were really, really relevant in today's world and such like. Simone, do you have any thoughts on that? You know, you're both in that EA and kind of, you know, space. And so I just wondered if you had anything to add to that. I think Ben did an incredible job of covering that off actually, but you know, do you have anything else to add to that from your perspective?
I think Ben made some really great points, and I think for assistants who have been in this space and operating at that level for a while, even though it's hard, it comes naturally. And I think I don't know all of the people who are on this, so I'm going to dial it back a little bit just in case you are not in that spaces yet. Because Ben spoke about a lot of things in regards to leadership, being strategic, and taking ownership and accountability. And those 4 words are often foreign to some assistants, because a lot of what we do is based upon what someone else is asking us to do. So even when we're being proactive, we're still reacting to somebody else's request or something coming into someone else. And I think to Ben's point, there is something that around change that we all have to get comfortable with. And most people hate change. And assistants, I think, yes, it's great. We deal with change. If something changes for our executives, we can deal with it without blinking an eyelid. But if something fundamentally is changing around our roles, that's where we tend to get shaky and we almost wait for someone to guide us. And that's where we have to get much more proactive. We have to understand our roles as assistants better than anybody else around us who are not assistants, because that's our role. So where we see things are different, we all suddenly went home a year ago and we were having to learn how to actively manage our executives from a distance. How did we go about that? Were we still filling our executives' diaries with back-to-back meetings as if they were in the office? There are some simple things that we can do that show our leadership. We don't always have to look at the big strategic picture. We can actually start making impact in small ways. And it's the impact that actually has the value. So I often hear assistants say that my executive's diary is perfect, his travel is always perfect, there is never anything wrong. But that's fine, you're doing your job. But how does that differentiate you from every other assistant? Because in the world that's changing, it's that differentiator that's important. Yeah. And Ben also made another point in regards to building your own brand. We are so used to introducing ourselves as the assistant to that people don't actually know our name. They know us as the assistant to. We have to build up our own brands so that people know who we are and what our specialization is and the impact we're making. So I think every assistant who's listening on this call, whether you are new in your career or whether you are an expert at it, we all have to keep adapting to change, but we also have to realize what our why is, what our role is, and be the expert at it, and not always rely on somebody else to be telling us what to do.
Brilliant. Thanks, Simone. And I think, you know, that complemented what Ben's comment said really nicely. Great. Right. Well, let's move on to the next kind of, you know, part of the topic. And that is, what is your one piece of advice for an executive who is struggling to use their assistant to their full potential? Yes, I'm going to pass this one over to you, if that's okay, and see what your thoughts are around this.
Yeah, sure. I feel a bit intimidated now. Ben and Simone, what an
incredible.
follow. Yeah, no pressure, no pressure. Well, I think, you know, the important thing to know is that this is a really common issue. And I think that says everything that we need to know about the importance of it needing to be addressed. This is something that I experienced when I was first a PA, you know, 15 years ago. And it still is relevant now. So there needs to be change. And I feel as though for a lot of us, we've been let down by execs, by HR departments, by hiring managers for a really long time, and something needs to change. And I think everything I'm going to mention now actually works really well with regards to what Simone and Ben just said in terms of accountability. And I think that it's actually more than just one bit of advice, because I think it comes down to three things. I think it comes down to the hiring process, the partnership when actually working with your assistant when they're in their role, and the future and thinking long term about what that partnership means and what you can actually bring to each other, and not only focusing on what the assistant can bring to you as an exec. And I think that's a mindset switch that we all need to, you know, really embrace. This isn't a give role. This has to be a two-way street for us to have that happiness in our role, that longevity in our role, and to see the change and the development that we are all due and that we're all owed as really successful members of working society. So I think, I mean, when it comes down to the hiring process, execs do need to start, I think, taking more responsibility and accountability in guiding that process. And it's really important that they understand that this is absolutely necessary. This isn't negotiable. They should have time dedicated to the hiring process in their calendars. They need to do more research into the positive impact that assistants can make on the wider business. They need to understand how the role has grown outside of the traditional responsibilities of diary management and travel organisation. And they need to really understand as well the opportunities that they as people managers and as execs can provide the person for continuous development in the same way that they have to do that for everybody else in their departments, because they need to start seeing the assistant as more than just your traditional EA or PA, and see them as the really powerful force that they can be to drive change in the wider business, but only if they give them the chance. So I think before we can really understand, or before an exec can really understand what person should be employed in the role, they need to have answered all of those questions. And they also need to understand and communicate their own values to the hiring manager and play a really active part in what the job description says, because it's critical that you get it right. This is the point in time where you have the most control over who goes into that role. So I think many job descriptions are identical. We automatically and the PA at a really big disadvantage, because as with soft skills, you know, you're never going to be an expert at soft skills because every single person on the planet is different. And so why as an exec should you have the same job description being advertised as every other exec in London or around the world, pretty much? And why should you think that having a very similar job description to, you know, to blanket approach the whole industry is going to get you, you know, the partnership that you really need? You know, it is a massive disadvantage. Assistants have so much potential to create major change in an organization, but as I said, it's only that if you understand how they can be really utilized, which is very relevant to you as an individual and what your skills are as an exec and what, you know, your department is looking to achieve in the next couple of years. So it really comes down to, I think, execs as leaders to guide that process, to really communicate what the USP of the role is, and to make sure that you're not automatically sabotaging the opportunity in creating an amazing partnership, because we all know what it looks like when you have an exec and a PA and EA, a business support professional, working in sync with aligned values on the same mission with the same energy. And it is incredible to watch. So I'd say the hiring process is one thing. And then communication and context, not just telling someone what to do, but context is so crucial when working with your assistant and performing as an incredible team. So assistants aren't mind readers. We don't possess these superpowers that are given to you if you come from a planet in outer space. You know, we don't.
Are you sure, Jess?
From Mars or some, you know, planet that you see in a Marvel comic movie. You know, ultimately assistants are collectors of habits who then map those habits down and perform those common and not so common tasks based on data that you have. And they can only do that if you give them the time and the insight and the context to use for growth. The one thing that I always say to PAs and EAs is never stop being curious. Ask questions about everything. Read every board report you can get your hands on. You know, educate yourself consistently. But execs also have to do that with their PAs and give them the ability to do that. There's no point asking someone to do something if they don't have the context of the conversation or why that is important to the business, because as Simone said, you're just reacting. You're just constantly reacting. And then the last thing I think is, as an exec, you need to understand the goals and ambitions of the assistants, you know, their professional goals and ambitions, and ask them, sit them down and ask them, what do you want from your career? Where do you want to go? How can I help you achieve that? And you can use those areas of interest that PA has to your advantage. You know, if you have a PA who's really interested in projects and you've got a new project coming up, give that opportunity to your PA to have a chance at trying something new, but also build that mentoring and that support at the beginning of your relationship so that you can lift them up. We should all be supporting or surrounding ourselves, with people who lift us up. And that is a responsibility of execs as a people manager and as someone who should be interested in developing their staff. It's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street, and there needs to be balance. So I think it comes down to the hiring process. I think it comes down to investing the time in communication and context. You know, there's that phrase that I use quite a lot with all of our PR agencies we work with, return on investment. That is how execs should see their relationship with their PA, their EA, regardless of whether they are first walking into the role for the first time or they've been doing it for 45, 50 years. It's return on investment. You get as much from your PA as you put into them. And I think it needs to be something that we see more of. Execs need to start taking accountability for who we are and consistently provide that accountability, not just to themselves, but to the other execs on the board. If you need to hold a meeting where you sit all the PAs down and say, how do we utilize you best? How do we maximize your skills? Do that. You know, if there's an opportunity to get everybody around a boardroom table and just make it very simple and make the process really easy to understand, do it. You know, it's not that difficult. It's that ROI, it's the return on investment that execs need to spend on their PAs. And I think we would be looking at a very different industry.
You know what, Jess, that was great. And there's a few things just from what you were saying there that really resonated with myself and thinking, God, you know, it's really true. You know, I've worked in a lot of different organisations and I get that, you know, I work in recruitment, but in recruitment, for example, right, you have a very clear career path, you know, where you're going to and how you can get there. You know, this is what it means. This is all the different tick boxes and, you know, and people really drive to do that. And I have recruited in the PA world for a long, long time. I've been part of the PA world for a long time. And I know we're going to touch on this later, so I won't go into it too much just now, you know, and how that's evolved and over time. But I do think execs need to sit down and really think, what is next for my PA? What is next for my EA? And I think that, you know, I think we really will start to see more of that. And, you know, looking at it from an exec taking accountability and responsibility for that, sure, 100%. But I think for everyone on this call, you know, you could certainly sit down and say, can we do this at my next review? can we please do this? Can we pick through what I can do to, you know, develop and showcase that that's something you are interested in doing? And it'll let them go away and think about, wow, right, what can I do to help these, you know, what can I give to, you know, my assistant to help develop them? And it hopefully would start a chain reaction, right, of
everybody who's an assistant, regardless of what level you're at, you have transferable skills.
Yes, you do.
So the execs need to understand that that is a huge part of what PAs and EAs have to bring. So why don't you maximize the fact that your EA or PA has transferable skills to help you in other ways? And as I said, look at the wider goals of the business, not just what you need as an exec, but how can this person become, you know, an absolutely crucial member of our team, more so than they are now, and how can we really utilize their skills and, you know, get them to be making a wider impact? Because it's not that we can't do it, it's that the opportunity for a lot of us doesn't exist. You know, we're expected to, you know, do what's on our job description and more, but the things that are not on our job description and we're asked to do that are more are actually the same repetitive tasks that we get asked to do all the time. Let's switch it up. Execs need to start taking more accountability. If you're a PA or an EA and you want to start, you know, kind of evolving in your role, also sit down and ask for that opportunity. Communicate what your skills are. Communicate, this is what I want from my career. I think we're the only industry that never sits down with or most of us, we don't sit down with our boss and say, this is what we want from our career. You know, most of the people that I know who are not PAs or EAs are not afraid to sit down with their manager and say, look, I love my job, but I don't want to do that part of it anymore. And I'd like to concentrate more on this. And that's 100%. A conversation that happens. So yeah, I think it does come down to accountability and just really appreciating that person for the impact that they can make on the wider business.
Yeah, definitely. Great, thanks, Jess. So I'm going, for the interest of time, I'm going to move on to the next question, or the next topic, and that is, and this one's for you, Sam, because I think you could really add some value to this too. So, you know, assistants are often one of the forgotten groups, which we've said quite a bit here, right? We've already kind of gone over that, but when it comes to progression and development, so how does an assistant forge and shape their own career ladder? And I do think we've touched on some of this stuff, but, you know, Sam, what's your thoughts? Because, you know, you've been working in this industry for a long time. You'll have seen a lot of job descriptions coming through, and I think we've already said that they're very standard and everything else. But, you know, how what's your thoughts on that from what you've seen and, you know, the countless PAs and EAs that you speak to day in, day out?
Absolutely. So I think for me, I would say 100% in all my 14 years of being in EAPA recruitment in total, the number one reason for leaving has not changed. It has always been lack of development, lack of progression, or an EA or PA being frustrated in the role that they're in because there's nowhere for them to go and they feel like they've hit the glass ceiling. And that actually hasn't changed in all the years that I've been in recruitment. It is still the number one reason that people look to move on from their role. In regards to things, you know, like the job specs, yes, I have seen those change over the years, and we'll talk a little bit more sort of towards the end of the event about, you know, how we've seen things evolve. But yes, they have evolved and they have changed, but I still think there is still a very archaic attitude towards the EAPA role within many industries. And I think, you know, in terms of what you guys can do to help that, we've touched upon a lot of those things already, but going back to that word accountability, you know, you are accountable for your own career, you're accountable for your own progression, and you know, you're accountable to educate your exec as well. And I know that can be absolutely terrifying, you know, particularly if you've got a tricky boss, you know, where there's some in every company, some, you know, we encounter them every single day. However, it's having that accountability and that confidence in yourself to be able to sit down with your exec. You know, you guys manage their diaries, put some time in that diary for yourself. put some time in your diary, even if it's a 15-minute meeting with them one day, just to say, I want to sit down with you and I want to talk about my goals. I want to talk about not only how I can improve my own career, but how those, that extra step for me can help you. Educate them, show them things like this, go to your exec with the recording of this seminar, go to your HR team, the recording of this seminar, and show them some of the top, the key points that we've discussed today. It's about, really using, as we said, using your review meetings to not only sit there and be told, what you're doing well and what you're not doing well, but to have the confidence to be able to sit there and say, okay, yeah, I really appreciate, thank you for that feedback. I take that on board. But actually, I'd like to give you some feedback on how I feel you can better utilize me and, things that I'm really good at. Perhaps they don't know things that you're good at. I, for example, last week I took a job spec from a female entrepreneur. And I said, okay, so what does your PA do on a day-to-day basis? She gave me 3 bullet points of what her PA does. I then said, okay, this seems slightly fishy to me. So I booked in some time with her PA and we came up with 2 A4 sheets of paper of what she does on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. And, you then sit back and think, well, is that the fault of the exec for not realizing what her PA does? Or is it also for the PA for not educating her exec about the value that she adds on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah.
So again, it really goes back to that accountability and education piece. I think something else that we see quite often, I think we're seeing less of it now, but actually sort of, a while ago, it was all about the hard skills. It was all about the, how fast can a PA type? How good are they with PowerPoint? How good are you with Excel? Whereas I think now, the shift is quite rightly moving to more of those soft skills. When you're recruiting, it's the soft skills that get you the job. It's the fit, it's the personality, it's the drive, it's the vision. It's very rarely how well someone can manage a diary. It's you can teach someone to manage a diary, but you can't those soft skills are the things that you need to develop as a person. You develop over time, you grow, you progress, and those soft skills are so important. And using companies like the Assistant Room, who do the most incredible courses on those soft skills. We promote, we work in partnership with the Assistant Room. We promote their courses all the time because we truly believe in them. It's those soft skills that really elevate you from a good PA to that absolute knockout exec PA. As Ben mentioned earlier, it's putting yourself forward, it's putting yourself out there, and as Simone mentioned, it's promoting that positive change within your organization. It's looking back and thinking, okay, so what do I feel is lacking? Other people are probably thinking the same. So perhaps going to your boss and saying, I've actually been doing some research on D&I. I know that's a really important subject at the moment, and I would really like to drive a D&I committee. I've been doing some research on mental health, and well-being and how COVID has impacted people, and identifying those niches and identifying those holes in the company strategy and coming up with the solutions. It's being proactive. It's putting yourself out there as that driver of change and that problem solver. It could be something to do with perhaps, not for profit. It's something that everyone's, looking at their kind of, their company's accountability in regards to sort of charitable giving and things like that. Anything like that, really think about how you can put yourself forward and drive change, but don't wait for someone to ask you. Be that driver, be that, that real sort of, person out of the blocks that goes, actually, do you know what? I've come up with this. I've thought about this. I've gone away and I've thought about it. And think about, as we said, the ROI and the value that, perhaps a mental health project could add to your whole organization. And finally, I think one of the big reasons why PAs and EAs and assistants don't always put themselves forward is, I think, it's imposter syndrome, right? We've PAs and EAs have been told for so long, you're just an assistant, you're reactive, you do what someone else tells you. And it's infuriating because you think, God, there's so much more, you guys are so much more, and you're really, as an industry and as people, you're incredibly powerful. And it's it's looking at yourself and read up about imposter syndrome, learn about it. Are you suffering from it? Identify it within yourself and combat it and put yourself forward and have the confidence to do so.
Yeah. Go on, Jess.
Can I just say, if anybody is suffering from imposter syndrome, we've got a really fantastic article in the Assistant Room about it. And there are lots of tips on there that are actually Sam, I'll share it with you after so you can circulate it. But there are lots of tips on there that are shared by the world leading authority in overcoming imposter syndrome, and it's brilliant. So I'll share that with you so you can circulate it afterwards.
Thanks, Jess. And Sam, you know, I think that you've hit the nail on the head there, actually, and really brought something to light that is something that a lot of people suffer with, for sure. And I can imagine, you know, without, you know, I hadn't really thought about it necessarily before today in this context for this group of people, but actually, you know, you said this, you've been told for so long that you're just an assistant, and that's just, this is just our job. But actually, you know deep down that that's not the case, but the confidence and the, you know, because you think that that's how you're perceived, that actually then you don't want to showcase and talk about these other amazing skills that you have. That would be great, actually, Jess, to pop that article over, and certainly let's make sure we get that round to you guys. And even if you don't know what it is, I'm sure you'll have all heard of it, but if you haven't, take a read. It's actually really, really interesting. I've done quite a bit of research on it myself previously. So yeah, no, I think that's a great shout, Sam, and I think that you will really all enjoy the read. So yeah, definitely circulate that. Thanks. Fab. Right, I'm going to go on to asking about how to drive positive change as an assistant within your organisation. And Simone, you know, you've been with the same organisation for 15 years, right? And you've been supporting that person. So how, I can imagine that you've done quite a bit of positive change in your organisation, but it'd be great just to get your views on that.
This is such an interesting question. And I think for me, you rightly said, I've been with my firm 15 years and I've been in some kind of administration for over 22. But to be honest with you, my focus was always on the person I supported. And my mindset only changed when I realized that actually my focus should be on me and my role. And it's when I changed that focus, I was then able to provide positive change. And I'm going to explain it a little bit for us. Because if our focus is always on someone else, whether that be an individual or a team, we tend to focus on tasks. We don't see anything else happening around our organization that might need to change.
Yeah.
Especially so as assistants, because we don't even see what's happening to us that requires us to change it. So everything happens to us. We get a new boss. Do we have a say in it? We get a new role. Do we have a say in it? They're talking about salaries or change in titles. Do we have a say in it? Most often the case is that we don't. And that's because we're so busy looking after everybody else that we forget about ourselves. And the one thing I learned when I finally took my head up from being a great assistant, yes, but I looked up and realized, what do I know about my own profession? Actually, I didn't even think of it as a profession. It was just a job. I didn't realize there were great things like Jess and the assistant room or all the other networks out there to support us. So if we are so busy being focused on everybody else, we won't see things that needs changing. So I would say the first thing that we can actually do to drive positive change is understand what your role is as an assistant. And I've picked up on this phrase quite recently. Because of that term, people say, I'm just an assistant. And I think, yes, we are there to assist, but there was a term, we work in service, not in servitude. So I'm not here to do everything that you tell me to do. And I think especially in large organizations, this is really important because we are paid for by our organization, not by the person we're supporting. So our organization put us there to do a role and to fulfill that role specifically. Now, this is a real small thing. So we all, actually not now, but there was a time that we may have been doing expenses or our bosses were going out to lunch and our firms may have set quite a strict rule regarding spending limits. Now, if our boss then comes in and says, oh, I've overspent here, can you kind of lose it? our response is not to say yes, because the firm told us very specifically what our role is. Our response should be, actually, that's not company policy, no. And you really have gone above and beyond that. I can't do that for you. That's us in a very small way doing what our role is. And I think that empowers you. When you know what your role is within a firm, it empowers you. You are no longer just this person who is doing something for someone else. And when you see that, that's when you can really start to drive positive change. And you can do that in small ways or in large ways. The minute you understand what your role is, you have a positive effect on every other assistant you meet, because you may meet assistants who are struggling with bosses who may be bullying them, or bosses who ask ridiculous things of them. When you empower them to realize you do know that your role as assistant is not there to be a servant to someone, you're there to fulfill a specific purpose, you empower them. When you empower an assistant or a group of assistants, positive change can take place. And I think of it as, let's make positive change for us as assistants. Let's focus on us. What are we missing? Is there development we're missing? Is there training we're missing? If you as one assistant speak with one voice, it's a lot harder to make change. But if there are lots of voices, it's a much bigger and powerful impacts that you can make. So once you look up from your computer screen or your boss's diary, think about the things that you're missing. Do you want more training? If you look around your organization, is there training for everybody else, but not for assistants? Raise that to HR. Everybody is focused on DEI at the moment. If you are not feeling included, highlight it. Say, isn't our company policy that we're all included, but we have this whole group of us who are not included? What I've found is that most companies are not doing it on purpose. It's habit. So unless something is raised to them, they don't know anything is wrong. And you may sit back and think, but they should, they're hiring us. They don't. So don't wait for someone else to point it out. If you know it's wrong, use your voice to actually create positive change. And when you all do that together, it's so empowering. And you can start in small ways. Nobody's asking you to reinvent the wheel straight away, especially if you've never done something like that. But I think by you taking small steps, just by thinking, even within your own world, am I included in team meetings? No. If a new person comes in, are they automatically included in team meetings? Yes. Am I a part of the team? Yes. Go to your team meeting. People then get used to you being in your team meetings. They get used to hearing your voice. And with that voice, you can then make positive change. Another example of this is Jess has set up the assistant room. So she has set up a positive thing for assistants externally. We need to take advantage of that, because all of those things help you in your role. You can also do that internally. Can you start an internal network, an internal assistant network at your firm? Just get a group of you together. You don't have to change everything all at once, but it can lead to positive change. In my own firm, we have a global network, as I said at the beginning, and we have already started to make positive change. We've worked with our DEI teams, we've worked with our HR teams. So not only do we have training for assistants, specifically for our roles, but we are included in all training for all professionals. Now that shows true inclusion. We don't always want to be on the side. Yes, there is some training that we may need specifically for our roles. But if we think about imposter syndrome doesn't just affect assistants. So if your firm is running a session on imposter syndrome, go with everyone else. You don't need to be, oh, but it's not for assistants, because then you're automatically excluding yourself. Be included. And these things can all help to drive positive change. but it really does start with you as the individual, because change can be happening around you. And if you haven't lifted your head up, you will never see that change.
Yeah. Great, Simone. You know, it's really powerful. I'm absolutely loving this. And you know what comes across is the passion behind everyone, that how every one of us really feel about this industry and, you know, people's careers and such like. You know, I think is myself as a leader of teams, it is one of the most important things on my agenda. And, you know, I'm sure Sam would echo that. Actually, it's one of the biggest passions I have, is making sure that everybody's included and that everybody has a voice to be able to kind of, you know, move forward with their careers, because it's super important, right? To make sure that that's possible. But yeah, wonderful. Now, guys, I'm really conscious of time, and I'd really like to open up the floor to people for a Q&A. So I think that's where I'm going to go with this. We did have something else to say, but I think in the interest of time, I'm conscious people will be doing this in their lunch breaks. And I think it's more important talking about hearing people's voices. I think let's hand over to you guys to ask. This is, you know, open up to the floor now to you. If you've got any questions for anyone on the call, please feel free to yeah, shout up. Does anyone have any questions for anyone?
Hi guys, it's Monica.
Hi Monica.
Hi there, hello everybody. I've totally resonated with everything that each and every one of you have said. I've been an EA for a long time, many years, like Simone, 20 plus. And over the years, I've seen a lot of changes, but it's always kind of almost breaks my heart to see how our role in a way is always being downplayed. It never gets the respect within organizations as it deserves. And I often wonder why we're always the ones to go out and get the sandwiches. We're always the ones to kind of get the coffees, regardless of the fact of how busy we are. And I also, Sam, you mentioned about the entrepreneur when you were talking to her and she gave you 3 bullet points. I experienced a similar thing with my boss. I think it was one of those situations when I was kind of like due for a rise or a raise, so to speak. And this was one way of putting my point forward. So I had to actually bullet point every single thing that I did on a daily basis and beyond. I also, it was like a 360-degree kind of really fast-paced industry. So I was also doing her personal work as well. And I think that because they get so caught up, they don't actually realize how much we actually do. So when I put this in front of her, I could see her face change because she had no idea that this was my role. So I kind of, I'm all for adapting and all for going in and wanting our role to change. But I also think that it's educating HR when they're doing job specs. And I think that they should be looking around and seeing what the role is and really kind of getting into the kind of like the depths of the role, not just the surface bits. Yeah, sorry, have I gone?
Oh, no, you're good. Sorry, I think someone had just accidentally unmuted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so anyway, I just wanted to say that I just kind of, a lot of what you said was very, very good points. And, you know, it's great that they're now being kind of like looked at and addressed. And I'd love to see the role being appreciated more.
Absolutely.
Than it is.
Agreed. And I think, you know, we keep fighting and we keep educating and we keep, you know, having events like this until we see EAs having a rightful place on the board, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes.
I think as well, Monica, the one thing that we all need to take, that we keep using this word accountability.
Yes.
If we want to be seen as professional, we need to see ourselves as professionals. So
absolutely.
Drop the word just. We need to have our voices raised. And sometimes it is difficult and it is uncomfortable. But the one thing that I have found is that the more I articulate myself professionally, and also the more I understand my role and can articulate that, people view you as the expert. So you will be the one that they'll be coming to, and they treat you completely differently. So just the same way, if you go to a doctor when there is something wrong with you and your doctor's umming and ahhing, you have no confidence.
Yeah.
So when your boss comes to you wanting a solution to something or comes with a problem, try not to and ah. Be really positive. Say, I don't know now, but I will go and find out and find the solution, because that is where our niche market is. And then the appreciation will begin to grow. But as I said, it starts with us as well.
Oh yeah, definitely, absolutely. But again, we have to be together on it. And sometimes when you're working with other EAs, you're not together. You're not as a, you're not on the same page. And they're quite happy to sort of like not rock the boat. So I think, yeah, we do have to rock the boat.
Absolutely. Be confident enough to rock the boat. We've got a couple of questions coming through on the chat as well. So we've got one from Leanne. Sorry, give me 2 seconds. So Leanne is a new assistant. She's just got her first PA role. She says she's joined an empty seat in a company. There was no handover, and she's had about 5 pages worth of things of how to do things, but not any real context on what to do or why. She said, is this typical in an assistant role? And do you guys have any words of advice for her?
I don't mind answering this. And then Ben, I saw that you are muted as well, so I'll go really quickly. I think, Leanne, I have been in the exact same position as you. And I think most PAs or EAs have been in a position where we've joined a company or we've started something new and we haven't had a handover, and it's really trying to just cope and get, kind of hit the ground running as quickly as possible and get into the swing of things. I think, as I said before, it's about communication and context. If you don't have the context, ask for it. If you need to sit down with your exec, your new boss, and ask what's happening, why it's happening, what does this mean, who does that involve, that is absolutely fair for you to do. It's also required for you to do your job well. So I think it's about just being open and being confident in your communication and communicating what you need to do your job. As Simone said, we are there in a capacity to do something that the company has employed us to do. So to be able to fulfill that role properly, you have to know what you're doing, because if you don't ask those questions and if something goes wrong, you're going to be the first person that they come to and ask for an explanation as to why that hasn't been done properly. And you are automatically disadvantaging yourself and putting yourself in that position if you don't have the context. I actually think that being brand new to the role is the best position that you could be in to get that context, because there is never a point when you join a new business where you can ask too many questions.
Amazing, thank you.
And there's a couple of questions on here actually around, advice on getting the next PA role. What I would say is to reach out to Sam on that, and Sam could have a bit of a kind of consultation around what you might need to do. If that's all right, Sam. Feel free to.
Absolutely, yeah, no problems.
I think that could be a good idea. And then we have, it's good to see, Nikki, that you are that you speak up in your role, and that's the way it should be, right? So thank you for that comment. And then we have another question.
We've got one more from Evelyn as well.
Yes, we do. Can you recommend any training, mentoring courses for office managers and EAs looking to take that next step to business assistant or exec support partner? She says, I already take on projects. So anybody get any thoughts on that?
Hi, it's Aicha here. I would definitely recommend Zoe looking into Adam Fiddler. He's got a whole academy that will definitely be able to sort of help at looking as to where you might want to go, and some courses and things. So that's one recommendation from me.
Thanks.
I think also in regards to other things, I think as we said earlier, obviously 100%, I cannot recommend the assistant room membership enough. In regards to really kind of, taking yourself to the next level. As I said, it doesn't focus on just the hard skills, it's the soft skills, it's those really important, as I said, the all important soft skills that I think, you definitely highly recommend. And as a recruiter, I will be completely honest, I have never looked at an EA qualification on a CV of an experienced EA and gone, oh, I think that's going to really take them to the next level. I really haven't. I'll look at things like memberships they're involved with. I'll look at things that they do out above and beyond, but I won't ever go, oh, great, they've got a qualification in admin.
Yeah.
I think, you know, don't be conned by people into thinking that, you know, that is something that's really super important for your career, because as someone that's been in EAPA recruitment for a long time, I can honestly say it's something that I don't really look at on CVs, to be completely honest.
Or the hiring managers take into consideration, even that's not something that's
Absolutely
taken into consideration. Yeah.
I had a quick question to add on to that, if okay. The qualifications and for EAs and PAs, qualifications and backgrounds, and some job descriptions actually ask for a degree, educated EA. I mean, how would you come around that? Because, you know, somebody can be someone wouldn't have a degree, but they have a lot of intelligence, and where one person would have a degree but will not have on the job experience and intelligence to actually, you know, within the company. I mean, how would you come around that? Because I've come across a lot of job descriptions who's asking for a degree.
Can I ask?
I mean, as
an assistant perspective. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
I actually think this is quite interesting, and I've had a lot of responses as to why they do that. Some companies put it there because they want to see that you've gone through a course and stuck to it. And some companies put it there because it's habitual for them to ask for it for everybody else. But one of the things when we spoke about positive change earlier was you can question that in a firm if you are an assistant, and we've done that. So it's sometimes experience is the thing that should be the qualifier. And when I say experience, I don't mean tenure, because you can have assistants who have been assistants for 20 years, but their skills are not relevant for now. So I would say if you are coming across that you are being rejected or you're not even being put through, there are algorithms, so it won't necessarily see that you don't have the degree. Make sure that your experience shines through on your CV and articulate that really well. So it shouldn't just be that you manage calendars globally. Actually state the impact, because a lot of assistants will be able to do that. So I think that's the one thing. It will be harder if algorithms are looking through it, but it's really your experience and what you do and impacts that you have made that will get you through the door, not the degree. Because my degree is in fashion, so.
Completely agree. And from a recruiter point of view, I'd say this is something that we're trying to educate our clients about at the moment. I cannot tell you how frustrating it is from a recruiter point of view, especially one who doesn't have a degree, to be told that you can only send PAs who have a degree for this role. And it's not, it doesn't, and you know, if they'll even say it doesn't matter what the degree's in, doesn't matter. So which again shows, you know, why do they need it? Why do you need someone that has a degree that you don't even care what the degree's in? And as Simone said, yes, some of them will say yes, it's because we want to show that they've, you know, showed commitment to something and completed it. We are in the process of trying to fight this with our clients at the moment, and we are trying to educate our clients at the moment as to, you know, the reasons why they feel that they need degrees. I would say one really good thing is that obviously with the huge drive on diversity, inclusion and all of that sort of stuff at the moment, clients are now starting to look at people from different backgrounds, perhaps people that weren't privileged enough to be able to go to a university. And we are starting to see more of that, you know, this opening up. I think it's going to be a slow and painful process, I'll be honest, educating some clients, but we are seeing a bit of a shift. So, you know, fingers crossed that will keep going in the right direction.
Sam, so can I ask, why do you think that came in? Because that was never the case previously. I mean, people didn't ask for degrees for EA roles. So it's just coming.
I couldn't possibly say why, to be completely honest. I think for some clients it's a bit of a status thing to be able to say that you know, every person in their company is degree educated, you know, even to the point where we have clients that will say we want someone with a 2-1 degree from a red brick university in a certain thing to sit on reception. It's, you know, it's there is no rhyme or reason, I will be completely honest, but yeah, hopefully we'll see things change.
There's a couple more questions on here as well. So from Zoe, she's saying, thanks so much, very informative. It's very volatile for EAs at the moment, and I can imagine, you know, that's why we wanted to have this particular panel event, actually, to look at that kind of evolution piece and say, you know, she says she's in an architecture firm, and any support function is an overhead. It's into everywhere. And she says she's managed to take over the web management, but she's conscious that the expectation is that support roles are becoming 3-4 roles in, with one little hint of being able to command more money in this climate. So basically saying, you know, people are having to take, I'm assuming the question there, Zoe, and correct me if I'm wrong, is, you know, what's our thoughts with regards to taking on extra projects? And sorry, Zoe, are you on the call?
Hi, yeah, I've just unmuted. Hang on a second, I will just put my video on as well.
Just wondering what the specific question is there, sorry, Zoe.
Yeah, I suppose the specific question is, we understand that it's volatile, and that's fine, we're making ourselves more indispensable, but we're also becoming more and more sort of weighed down and frazzled, but it's either do it or kind of lose your position in a way, because there are so many other people that might be able to step in and have the role. So it's just how to, yes, you can have conversations and everything, but when the industry you're in is really strapped for cash with, you know, the climate that we're in, should we just lump it, get on with it, do a good job, and in sort of 2 years maybe have the conversation?
Oh, that's a good question.
It's a big question.
Company.
It does, yeah.
I would always say that you need to look at your surroundings in the firm that you're in. So if you're in a small firm and all of the firm are going through that pinch mode, then it makes sense. But if you're in a large firm and only the administrative staff are going through that pinch mode, question it. Because what happened after the first crash was, I found that when I first joined the profession, the roles were much more clearly defined.
Yeah.
And then 2008 happened, and all of the business management, office management, all of that disappeared. And assistants took that on, but they didn't get the salary and they didn't get the recognition. And one of the reasons for that, yes, everybody was going through crisis, but when we came out of the crisis, nobody spoke up about it. And it is hard. But I think depending on the industry that you sit in, look around you, and if it's only happening to you, question it. But I also think one of the other things that you can do, and this really works in regards to your career, I still support 3 MDs, and my team is 54. I run the network globally, and I'm doing things like this, so I have a lot of responsibility. But what I've spoken to with my managers is how I can align the work that I'm doing so that they have the outcome that they need. So that does mean that my 3 MDs don't get the same service level from me. The rest of the team don't get the same service level from me, because there are other impactful things that my team want me to do. But what you have to do is then say, okay, if this is the outcome that you want, me as the administrative expert, this is how I need to do it. And then I show them how I can do that. So I think if there are things you said that, I think you said you may have already taken on the web management. If you enjoy that, make sure that your team know you enjoy it and they can see a visible impact to the work that you are doing. And then say, I'd like to continue this, but these little things here that I'm doing that actually you can all be self-sufficient at, you now need to be more self-sufficient so I can continue to create this impact. So really look at your own environment and see what's happening around you to see if you're being treated the same. If you're not, then speak up about it.
Can I also add something to that as well? Because Simone, I think all of that is the most perfect advice. And what I would also say is that budget always exists. It doesn't always exist in the right place. So Vic and Sam, I'm really sorry to say this, but businesses shouldn't only be concentrating on recruiting staff. Businesses should also be concentrating on retaining staff, and the amount of money and time that it costs to replace you as a PA or an EA is far greater than the amount of money that you would typically ask for if you wanted to be rewarded financially for taking on additional responsibilities. We did a poll with HR managers probably about 6 months ago, and on average, with the amount of time and people resources as well as recruitment fees and the amount of time that it takes to train you up to be as good as the previous person, it was around about £25,000 in total.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of power, because if you want to go in and ask for something, I could pretty much guarantee that the pay rise you'd be asking for is not going to be anywhere near that amount of money. So I think be brave with it.
Yeah.
You know, people feel as though, I think, you know, being a PA or an EA is quite a low skilled job, because again, it goes back to the fact that a lot of companies don't know what we do because we don't talk about it enough. So if they think it's a low skilled job and that you're easy to replace, then they're not going to consider you for things when they're considering other people for things. And as Simone said, that pinch might just be within the business support team. But it's just about saying, this is what I want, this is my impact on the business, and I think I'm owed this. And then from a commercial perspective, it's a much more sensible decision to keep you, you know, in all aspects, and continue to nurture you. You know, it's not just about recruiting, it's about retaining talent. So be brave, just go for it.
Thank you. That's good advice. Thank you.
I just wanted to very quick show. So I've got a comment from NS Mitchell. Sorry, I don't have your whole name on here, about paying to get your CV updated. Please don't do that. Please contact me separately afterwards, and we'll discuss that in more detail.
and honestly, I actually seen that, and you know, that sort of question for me, it's like, wow, it's really painful. And I can imagine that there's a lot of people out there that are applying for a number of roles, and unfortunately, you know, because of the climate and because of it, and even forget the climate, you know, a lot of the time the response just isn't there. So my advice would be exactly that. Speak to a really good recruitment consultant who is a consultant and thinks about everything that, you know, everything that you're looking for in a role. They can give you advice on your CV, advice on the best way to approach employers if we are not doing that on your behalf. And I can't think of a better person for you to speak to than Sam, of course. So certainly feel free to reach out to Sam on that. But what I would say is, you know, there's kind of tricks. You know, I would look on LinkedIn. Who is the hiring manager for that organisation? You know, you come across a job. I'm doing ourselves a disservice here, Sam, but I think it's a real practical tip for you guys. Absolutely, always partner with a recruitment consultant if you are looking for a job. Don't just pick anyone. That's a whole other topic we could talk about. But you know, make sure it's somebody that you trust, and that will do a proper service for you. On the flip side of that, if you do want to approach an organisation directly, my number one piece of advice would be connect with them on LinkedIn. So back to that personal branding piece, connect with them on LinkedIn, connect with the HR manager, you know, connect with the CFO, connect with everybody that you can within that organisation, and then send your CV to somebody directly. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what happens in today's world, you know, and try and start a conversation with them through a different means. And then you no longer are somebody in an application tracking system. You are then somebody who's shown initiative, proactiveness, and in the world that you guys are in, that will show that you're going to stop at nothing to get the job done or to get in front of somebody. So that would be my top tip. There's plenty more, but Sam can go into that with you in detail when you catch up with her. Right, I think we are.
Sorry, just one more.
Yeah, go on.
Sorry, just one more. Claire, it's Samantha Woodhouse at cronecorkill.co.uk. So Claire was asking for my email because obviously I'm coming up as Liz. So if anyone does want to reach out, Samantha Woodhouse at cronecorkill.co.uk. You can find me on LinkedIn as well.
Yes, indeed. And also myself. So anybody that's looking for anything, please feel free to reach out. And some of these comments are just really lovely. So thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure spending the day with everyone. Someone has asked, will we do more of these? We'd love to, you know, and we'd love to kind of do that. What my advice would be is, you know, go on to the assistant room and have a look at what other events those guys have got on as well. anyone who needs to, that's looking for advice, even if you're not actively looking right now, Sam has been in this world for a long, long time. She speaks to employers day in, day out. That is all she does all day, and candidates, of course. So Sam is a great person to speak to with what is happening in the market in real time, and what clients are saying, what are they looking for, and then of course naturally we could do a follow-up session to this maybe in 6 months or so, or maybe even before then, but we can certainly look to get you guys together again if that's what you would like to do. Does anyone else have anything else to add before we close off the call?
No, just to thank you all so much. Really enjoyed the session. Took on board everything that you all said, and thanks so much for your honesty and transparency, because that's really important as well, because some agencies don't always give us that. So no. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining.
You're all so welcome, and I will share a recording with you all afterwards as well, just so you've got that to show to your execs, your HR teams, and anyone else who wants to.
Yeah, super. Thank you very much, everyone. Stay safe.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank
you
so much. Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.